episode, we're going to go into more skincare, the skin type versus cleanser question. To start, cleanser versus acne. I think this has to be I think an acne cleanser has to be a lot of people's entryway into anything skincare.
For sure. Yeah. It's also the cheapest mode. But I think we've shared this in our previous episode too, so this might sound redundant, but there are just a couple studies that do show that, 2% salicylic acid washes can be helpful to a routine. We definitely want to add an asterisk here. There is no way a single cleanser is going to solve your acne breakouts. It's definitely helpful. It's definitely can boost your acne topicals and your general acne routine, but it's not going to be the single solution that makes or breaks your routine. So not to over glorify what an acne cleanser does, but it definitely is a mode that we see in a routine where you can add a little bit of salicylic acid or even BPO if you can't fit it anywhere else.
Yeah, and kind of adding on to that, it's definitely time and time again you'll hear us say you don't want actives in your cleanser because it's like washing a down toilet.
True.
This is the category where it is there to help.
Yeah.
And we did share the salicylic acid versus BPO wash study back in the day, and I do kind of want to dive into a couple other more creative studies. Now these are smaller studies, but I still think there's things to take away from these.
Let's do it.
All right. So there is an 8-week study that have one regular cleanser benched against a cleanser with actives. So this active is actually a very interesting blend. It had 1% salicylic acid, 0.04% triglycerin, which is an antimicrobial.
People are freaking out right now.
Yeah. Often using antibacterial hand soap. It has fallen far from grace, but we're not here to discuss triglycerin. And then 1% azelaic acid. How the study worked is every person gets both washes, and it's a split phase study. They wash it twice a day for 4 weeks, and then they stop using these cleansers for 4 more weeks. And basically, expert graders will look at these people's acne breakout lesions and compare at the 0 week, 2 week, 4 week, and 8 week time points. What's interesting is at the 8 week time point, so 4 weeks after they stop using both cleansers, the one with actives show a greater, and we'll have the graphs here, it shows a greater reduction in that angry, inflamed acne. But over 4 weeks, and then over 8 weeks, the two cleansers, in terms of the number of lesions reduced and the average amount of breakout, is about the same. I think the takeaway here is, while having actives help, to Victoria's point, it doesn't solve all of your breakout problems.
Yeah.
And general hygiene is still very important here.
Which leads us to the next question. How bad is overwashing? What's the sweet spot of frequency of cleansing? And Gloria found a great paper to talk about that as well.
Yeah, and you'll hear us, we often talk about how even though you're tempted to wash and get that squeaky clean feeling, whether or not you can overwash your face is definitely up for debate. And I found this study I'm just going to read the top line results from. So this study actually broke down subjects into 3 groups. One that washed their face once daily, one that washed their face twice daily, and one that washed their face 4 times a day.
It's a lot.
It's a lot of washing. I wouldn't even know how to time. Work it in.
Do you wash before lunch and after lunch? Is it at middle of gym time? That's a lot.
Yeah, and I'm almost curious, do people lie in these studies? Oh, yeah, I totally wash my face 4 times today.
Yeah.
But what they found was fascinating. Twice a day group and the 4 times a day group both decreased acne lesions. What's interesting is the once a day group came out really bad. It was actually worse than before the study.
Yeah, and honestly, that makes a lot of sense because we all know that while we definitely did a deep dive in our acne part 1 of the blog article. We talk about how C. acnes are a contributing factor. They are not the main source, but they definitely contribute to the acne lesion. So yes, of course, by washing your face, this does help with the overgrowth of C. acnes and controlling that population that ultimately leads to an acne breakout. So while that all makes sense, I know there's definitely a subset of people that feel like cleansers contribute to acne breakouts. So great study to have to share this with you guys.
Yeah, I think between these two studies, it is important to say that both of these studies that we talked about are small. They're under 20 people. It's more like it shows something, but not to take the conclusions
more data
away.
needed.
Yeah, exactly. I think the key takeaway here is twice a day seems to be the sweet spot if you're acne prone.
Yeah. And I was gonna say, just to add to that, do you need to wash 4 times a day? Definitely not. Remember that with acne breakouts, your skin is under fire. You're also putting some generally harsher topicals on your skin. Is important to help your skin barrier through this process. So by overwashing, it does and can impact the health of your skin as well. So just keep that in mind. So again, like Laura was saying, 2 a day is the golden rule. I don't think we have to question that again, but let's see. Maybe there's another paper that will make us feel differently.
Yeah. All right, so that's it on cleanser if you're acne prone. And let's go to the other end of it, cleanser versus dry skin.
Oh, the feels.
Yeah, so I personally have very, very dry skin. Growing up, I never pointed my fingers at cleansers, and I love soap cleansers. The squeakier, the better.
It's that lathery, like luxurious foam that smells nice.
Yeah, so definitely feel for anyone out there with dry skin. There's a lot of things you'll hear on the interwebs. Things like which surfactant should you use? People swear by low pH cleansers, this and that. It's important to remember, this is why cleanser is really hard for us to talk about, because cleanser formulas are complicated by design. Surfactant, the pH, they're important, but they're just important pieces of a puzzle.
Yes.
None of these things alone are like the ride or die golden rule that you should go off of.
I think that's such an important point to remember, because people, while it's great to try to figure out, which surfactants your skin might like or dislike, it's very hard to come right out of the gate to say this surfactant, like cocoa betaine, SLS, like these don't work, because most cleansers are blended, and those percentages of these surfactants are different. There's no chart of how much you should really use per surfactant, or golden rule, golden ratio, anything like that. So to write it off immediately right out of the gate, we would say don't do that. But if you think you might have an inkling about this, trial another one with that same surfactant. And I'm getting ahead of ourselves because we are going to talk about cleansers in the routine, but I think we always get some people say like, oh, I'm really not good with X surfactant. And we'll be like, okay, what cleansers have you tried? And then we'll try to backtrack the history. Anyways, I went off tangent, sorry.
Yep. But something that I thought was interesting to talk about is nowadays you'll hear a lot of claims that's like, oh, like this body wash or this cleanser is actually moisturizing. So can cleansers be moisturizing? There might be some merit to these claims, actually. Not to say, if you're dry though, you should never go with, not to say the cleanser replaces your moisturizer, please. It's just to say that it helps. I did find a study where there's 50 subjects. It's used for 4 weeks. They used a body wash, one that is moisturizing, one is not. And the moisturizing body wash contains ingredients like glycerin, petrolatum, and soybean oil. So they looked at parameters like erythema, scaling, dullness, and roughness. And it does seem like the hydrating body wash tends to do a little better. If you zoom in a little closer to these charts, you'll see that the error bars are humongous. They're like this.
I was looking at it's like in the beginning, the baseline.
It's all over the place.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but directionally, it seems to indicate that these ingredients matter. Now, what does it mean for you when you're choosing a cleanser? If you see nice ingredients like glycerin, cool. If you see some oil, bueno.
Petrolatum?
Cool.
Also okay.
Yeah, and I guess I think for me personally, when I hear claims like that, I tend to just roll my eyes and I don't believe, I'm not a believer. But actually, if you're really lost and you have really dry skin, it's not a bad place or bad claim to go off of.
Yeah. Also, just to help you weed out all the body washes or face washes. I did want to ask for this study. This is obviously right after they wash their face or wash their body, right? There's no lotion after or anything like that. Okay. Yeah. So the reason why I wanted to ask that is more because who knows what happens if you just put a lotion on top. So a lot of things to think about here. I think the main takeaway is that there's always a concern of cleansers being very stripping, very dehydrating, drying. So it's more for that in that capacity than, we want things that moisturize. Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Cool.
And last but not least, we have to talk about cleansers versus various skin conditions.
Yeah.
And it can be anything from you feel like you have a general skin sensitivity to I have rosacea, I have eczema, I don't know what to choose.
Yeah.
So first off, rosacea. Rosacea is notoriously difficult to treat. It's all about management, and having worked with or talked with people with rosacea, it seems like everyone's trigger is also a little unique.
Yep.
You start to get, it's like acne, right? It's almost like you're seeing signs and you're like, I think that triggers it.
Yep.
And it's definitely very difficult to manage. There's an overview article that is free. You can read a full paper. I'll post a link in the description. And the main takeaway from that paper is that they did look at pH. We say pH is not super duper important, but when it comes to skin with permanent chronic conditions such as rosacea and eczema, pH does seem to play a pretty big role. So they tested Syndet soaps, which are soaps with lower pH and surfactant blends instead of soap-based alkaline soap. It makes a huge difference to people with rosacea.
Yeah. And there's also another more of a survey study that looked at over 1,000 rosacea cases versus 1,000 healthy controls. This was a Chinese survey study. And first of all, with survey studies, we should preface that these are very difficult to draw real conclusions because that means they have to condense and consolidate all of these other data points from other studies, which means conditions are not always the same. It's really difficult to figure out, the different specifics. For example, for rosacea, the types of cleansing factors that, the subjects are using, what they're using in their routine. These are not all aligned in all of these different labs, in all of these different studies that they're compiling the data of. So we're just going to say that. But there are some really interesting points here. One of the things they talk about is that, for example, the cleansing duration, how long you cleanse for, does not contribute to rosacea. It seems like there's no consensus on that, but they say that it's because most people don't cleanse for longer than 1 minute. So they don't really know if that's more because the window of time that they cleanse is so short and we don't have people that are cleansing their face for 3 minutes. So that was kind of an interesting takeaway. And we've done a poll before where we would ask people how long do you wash your face? And so we just want to say it seems like there's 2,000 subjects out there and the consensus is under 60 seconds.
I think in the past we've done content where we compare cleansers by washing off different types of makeup on form. Yeah. And we'll try to control the method a little bit better. We'll lather for a full minute. And then we get comments like, who the heck rubs their skin for a full minute?
Who has time for 1 minute of cleansing? I was like, oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Well, today I learned most people don't.
Yeah. The other interesting takeaway was they found that the overuse of cleansing tools and deep exfoliating, those can contribute to rosacea. And what that means is cleansing devices, that can be brushes, anything that more gives a mechanical motion. Also to even like exfoliating products. So that was, we thought was interesting. And the other thing too was they talk about oil absorbing. They also mentioned facial mask. So we kind of have to dissect what some of these terms, they don't clearly define what that means. I think they kind of put these as like umbrella categories, but they definitely, I think what they are alluding to is clay masks. They find that those deep cleansing facial masks that people do can contribute to rosacea along with certain in-office procedures, but they didn't really clarify what that means. That could be anything, so I didn't know what to make of that, to be honest.
I will say these survey articles are always interesting but kind of annoying for us to read because they survey a ton of people. So, but at the same time, like, I don't envy these researchers because to extract anything consistent out of 1,000 people and just their basic daily habits is really hard.
Yeah. So if we were to make a conclusion here, we would say that, hey, don't wash your face for too long. And also don't, and don't overwash your face with devices. And don't go too crazy with those. And that, I think those would be the main things there.
Yeah, and I want to add that I think sometimes people with more sensitive skin tend to look at these studies and say, oh my god, like I am using a device, like I am doing this and that, and I should just stop. That's not what we're saying at all. It is important to remember that overdoing anything is bad, no matter your skin type, right? So maybe someone with rosacea can only use a cleansing brush. I'm just giving examples here. It's a hard number, but let's say once a week is suitable for them. Maybe for someone more sensitive, twice a week is your magic number. It's about kind of listening to your skin and kind of assessing the right frequency for yourself.
I was also going to add just a personal anecdote here. I do like to use some sort of cleansing, I don't want to say device, but just like an element, whether it's a contact sponge or something during the summer, because I'm wearing way more sunscreen. My skin is way oilier and sweaty. So I feel like that's when I would incorporate that. But then in the winter, when I'm starting to use heavier on the retinoids or more exfoliants even, I would say I don't incorporate that. So it's kind of those like fine tuning those methods and adapting to it that I feel like can really help out your routine. If that gives you a sense of how to balance it. I always feel like examples are helpful.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, totally.